collaboration with my friend, I think I instituted rigorous answer writing practice. It was a part of my daily schedule, and so was it Sachin's. There was a certain open initiative that we were both a part of. We had to finish 10 questions daily at the start of the day, and I think this has worked marvelously in our favor. I would recommend it to all candidates. I still attempted, even in my very last attempt. This is despite me getting roughly 130 plus in CSAT last year. I attempted 20 practice papers this year as well of CSAT alone, because you can't leave it to the whims and fancies of the CSAT question setter. Occasionally he may set a very difficult paper, and we must be prepared. So ideally not taking it lightly, but also distributing risks between all three sections, I think is my takeaway. The victory is going to taste all that sweeter because it was delayed. And I think, sir, even in ethics, we learn a concept called delayed gratification. Yes. So I think that was that probably made me stick to the journey.
कौन कहता है आसमान में छेद नहीं होता, एक पत्थर तो तबीयत से उछालो यारो. Hello everyone, I welcome you all to Vajiram Ravi, and today we have someone who have lived by this in his UPSC journey. So please welcome only rank 24 this year, RANGAMANJU. So how is it feeling, Rangamanju?
So I'm yet to process it. It's been about 2 days now, but I'm still taking it all in. But I'm ecstatic and thoroughly relieved.
Relieved, yes. Relief is important.
Yes.
So Rangamanju, this was your 6th attempt. So could you tell us in brief about your UPSC journey, that when did you first think that this is a time that I should be pursuing civil services?
So in fact, when I started my MBBS preparation, I actually wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, and this saga takes about 9 years. It was truly my intention to see it through. But somewhere in the 3rd year of my MBBS, my father would develop certain ailment. It was only discovered much later on, once the ailment had progressed from a certain stage to another stage, that it was a blood malignancy. And by the time it was actually discovered, it was too late. And that is when I thought that if I truly want to make a difference, even in the perspective of health, and I want to create sufficient change, I cannot do it merely as a doctor. And thereafter, I shifted my process towards the UPSC. I steered towards the UPSC.
So what was this journey look like for you in terms of attempts?
So in fact, my very first attempt was in 2019, and I had graduated that year somewhere in March, and I gave the attempt somewhere in June of that year. This was insufficient time for me to prepare, but I still had to give it. In fact, I remind my friends that when I first gave the attempt, I did not even know that the book called Lakshmikant existed. But I wanted to give that attempt because I knew my father was ailing, and I wanted to give him one last reason to be proud of me. So I was in a way coerced into that attempt, but I couldn't make it in that attempt. My father would soon pass away. Nor could I make it in the next 2 attempts. I faced subsequent failures, 3 consecutively. And the 4th attempt was the first time that I actually cleared the prelims examination.
I'm very sure your father will be very, very proud of you. And wherever he is, I'm very sure that he will feel so good about you. So you have done your father very proud. I'm very sure, Rangamanju. So there must be a lot of setbacks. First time you did not clear, and after that prelims also did not clear. And I think this was your first mains that you cleared. And in that attempt only, you got this 24th rank. So I just want to ask that what all changes you made during this preparation journey, especially with respect to last year's attempt?
Well, so it was actually my 3rd mains. I had cleared in mains. I had cleared prelims in the years 2022 and 23. But this was the first year that I cleared the main stage and got an opportunity to give the interview as well. And this was a shot that I had to take. It was almost a bullseye. And what I did differently in this attempt, sir, was perhaps, if I may say so, a good, strong collaboration with a like-minded spirit. If I may recall my friend Sachin BG, Dr. Sachin BG, he is All India rank 41. Him and I, we collaborated immensely. In addition to carrying over some learnings from my previous failed attempts of mains, I think we did it better we were more crisp, we were more precise, and we were more certain because I felt that when I had an off day, he would push me, and when he had an off day, I would push him. And in this process, we pushed each other, and we probably secured some success in this process.
So this jodi of Jay and Viru, I would say, both of you are in under 50 rank. I met Sachin a few days back when the result was announced, and he was also telling me the same thing about the importance of friendship in this journey. So talking about friendship, Rangamanju, many people believe that we need to prepare for this examination in isolation, and in doing that, they will cut off from social media, they will cut off from all the friend circle, and they will not speak to everyone, including their family members also at times. And I fundamentally believe that by doing this, they actually push themselves towards the problems in mental health, all these issues. So how important friendship was to you, and what will be your advice to your now fellow aspirant that what they can do with respect to friendship?
So on the count of whether isolation is a prerequisite to actually do well in the examination, I would strongly argue against it. I think that isolation will definitely lead to mental crises. I think we require some sort of solidarity to be shown with perhaps one or another friend, and therefore I would not advise solidarity. I would not advise that anyone be solitude, any one of them to have solitude in their UPSC journey. And having said that, sir, especially on the count of social media, I'm not a votary for having a presence on social media. I generally think it is counterproductive to the UPSC process. But I feel like UPSC wants us to be a lot more aware. Now, if I may recall a certain question in GS1 mains this paper, there was a question on Twister. And most of us who read the usual sources, the Hindu, the Indian Express, etc., might not have found it as easy to answer that question. This question, we believe, was largely inspired by the movie that was released in the preceding months. Some of my friends who have a flair for following movies probably got it right, or those with geography optional. So I don't think that an absence from social media is requisite either. I think a fine balance must be struck, and it's left to individuals how they see it through. Yes, I think that's all I have to say on this.
So golden mean, that's what all the virtue thinker says, that golden mean is something that we need to aspire for, and I think that is what Rangamanju is also saying, and that is something that Sachin also said, that keeping a close company of like-minded, focused friendship helped him also in acing this examination. So now moving on to the academic parts, I would be asking Rangamanju that in terms of academics, what changes you made in your mains preparation?
So I think that there were some changes I instituted in this successful attempt that I may not have in the last attempt. In addition to what I thought was a collaboration with my friend, I think I instituted rigorous answer writing practice. It was a part of my daily schedule, and so was it Sachin's. There was a certain open initiative that we were both a part of. We had to finish 10 questions daily at the start of the day, and I think this has worked marvelously in our favor. I would recommend it to all candidates. And it's not just that we write answers, we must sit with them and we must introspect as to how we can correct those answers. And it's not that we require, in the current day and era, a ready-made answer available in terms of a synopsis. I think with the advent of AI, we have such good resources. We just need the questions, and we need that determination to finish 10 questions a day, which is at least what I was doing. This was largely what I did for the GS aspect of things. But when it came to anthropology, again, I think it's largely the same, but there were more revisions that I made for anthropology on this occasion than I did in my last mains attempt. So I think that may have benefited me in some way.
So practice makes man perfect, and that is what both Sachin and Rangamanju did. They practiced a lot of answer writing on a daily basis, and that's what all of you must do, my dear students, that you also please practice on a daily basis. Identify what are the flaws, because it's not just enough to practice, it's also equally important that we identify the flaws and improve upon them. I often say the difference between aspirants and a successful candidate is the improvement that they make. Now, coming to the special GS paper, Rangamanju, this ethics paper, it is regarded as one of the most important paper, as it contributes a lot in terms of final marks. So I would ask you that how preparation for ethics is different than other GS papers. What challenges you face, or any aspirants would face when he or she is preparing for ethics.
So this was true when I started my journey, and that was roughly 6 years back. And I still think this holds true today. In that, while we can say that there's a standard book for most other subjects, like including polity, I think most would say Lakshmikant. And while some disagree with books for the other subjects, but there are some we consider standard. I don't think there is a book in the market currently that fundamentally captures everything that UPSC wants us to learn from the perspective of ethics paper. So that I think is the most important distinction in terms of the source material available. Additionally, I think that ethics has evolved as a paper. Now we see, if you were to look at the GS papers in the past 10 years and the GS paper of today, the marks allocation has perhaps changed, but not much else. The critical element of thinking, elaboration, etc. remains the same. But I think ethics has evolved in the last 10 years. I think it was first started in 2013. The paper that they attempted and the ones that we are attempting now, I think they are worlds apart. On these levels, I think that ethics is quite different a discipline for us in order to tackle UPSC.
So how did you tackle the ethics paper this year, Rangamanju? What did you do to tackle this paper and to fetch such high rank in civil service examination?
I think Sachin will smile because I've taken his name those many times in this one interview. But it was him, sir, that he actually coerced me into joining your course, for which I'm actually thankful to him. So that was one thing that I did extra this year. I attended your offline class in Delhi, the Ethics Enrichment Program. I think it was a 4-week course, a crisp course. And I, if I may recall, some of the learnings that I had in, for instance, in terms of clarity. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but for the first time, in this class, I learned what the difference was between political neutrality and impartiality. Well, there was just one instance where I thought to myself, wow, I've been wasting years. And even in otherwise, I think especially in the, at the level of answering the case studies, I benefited a lot from your approach to, let's say, showcasing why it is that you're taking a certain decision, the rationale behind your action, as well as structuring. I felt that we could bring out more points, more diverse thought processes, and therefore make the answer a lot better because we are looking at it from multiple actors. And I think that's another element that I take away as I benefited from, and a key takeaway.
Another important challenge in ethics paper, Rangamanju, is that that aspirants struggle a lot with respect to time management. So how did you manage time in the ethics paper? Did you complete the paper in time? And what did you do in the actual examination hall?
I think this is again where me and Sachin probably are outliers in this year's ethics paper. Most people struggled with finishing the paper, but both Sachin and I remember had a couple of minutes to spare. That is after we went through the paper and finished it. I think one of the reasons we did so was largely down to the number of practice papers that we attempted, part of your class, as well as in the mocks that we attempted. And perhaps even the familiarity with some of the questions that were already asked. I think some of your tests actually covered it. And once you're familiar with the questions, I think we write faster, and therefore we can complete the paper earlier. But I would say, in fact, strongly recommend that I think that evaluation of the ethics paper happens from the theory section, then onward towards the case study section. So I finished the theory section first, allocating exactly 1.5 hours to it, knowing that this is the time limit with which I have, and then proceeding to the case study section, which actually based on the total number of papers that are required for us to fill is quite vast. We may get lost in it if we attempt the case studies first.
So that's exactly what I also say, my dear students, that we should prepare themes in ethics paper because themes gets repeated. And when you prepare the PYQs well, when you expect these questions, they become a bit easy to tackle in the actual examination hall. Because otherwise, it becomes difficult to generate those many points and dimension in the examination hall. And both section A and section B are important, and that is why, as Rangamanju rightly said, that we need to give equitable time to the section A as well, because it also comprises of 130 marks, and that is how you should manage time in ethics paper. Another important thing, Rangamanju, is that in ethics paper, many aspirants, they struggle with quotation-based question. So how did you tackle with the, the quotation-based questions?
So I'll have to admit that I have struggled in the quotation-based questions. So I had a very open framework towards approaching them. I would basically convey what the quote says in my own terms. That would be my introduction, because otherwise it's very difficult to situate the quotation, what context it was stated, etc. Not always feasible. And thereafter possibly give examples that further elaborate my interpretation of that quotation, and cover very occasionally, if possible, another quote that I could link to that quotation, maybe towards the end, and then conclude as holistically as possible from life lessons from my own life and the lessons that I can use to relate to that question.
So in ethics paper, we usually see that aspirants struggle a lot with quotation-based question, and this is what we can also understand from his answers, that we need to interpret that quotation-based question from our own understanding and relate it with the life that is around us, because question also asks you that what does this quotation means to you in present context, and that is why application of the concepts become very important, and that thing happen when you have conceptual clarity. Now moving on, Rangamanju, regarding ethics, I would like to ask that how did you prepare notes, and in general also, what was your process like in terms of notes making? How important do you find note making is with respect to this preparation?
So I think it actually takes a mains attempt to understand how critical it is note making for ethics, because we must understand that we cannot give any time to ethics in the interim between GS2 and the next day's GS3 and GS4 papers. Since we do not have any time at all, what we should do is concise all of our notes in such a fashion that they can be covered in 2 hours in the lunch break between GS3 and GS4. Otherwise, I don't think in the 4 days in the lead up to the mains examination, we can have any sort of refreshing of the ethics papers.
Because the GS papers, they are consecutive papers and you do not have holiday between them, and that is what Rangamanju is saying, that we should prepare the crisp notes on ethics paper so that we can revise that in between GS3 and GS4, so as to generate maximum number of points in the examination hall. Now moving on to the prelims. Prelims is approaching, Rangamanju. Okay, so what will be your advice to the aspirants who are now preparing for the prelims this year?
So I do not have it on authority. I've only cleared 3 out of 6 prelims. But even taking drawing lessons from some of my more successful friends, I would say that what fundamentally changed and what allowed me to clear even the IFOS cutoffs in my 3 successful attempts, was that I stopped thinking of the entire paper as a knowledge-based paper. I don't think UPSC is testing knowledge in all 100 questions. I think there are roughly around 35 to 45 questions perhaps where knowledge is a key integral element of attempting the question. Maybe where rote learning is truly still required. But the rest of the questions require analysis, interpretation, some amount of critical thinking, and to actually be mindful of the fact that UPSC wants us to apply ourselves on the spot. I especially say this, especially to some of the people that I've been talking to recently, that if UPSC made it a knowledge-based question, it is only the chronic attempters that will keep clearing, and it's not the first attempters who will ever do it. And some of my friends, most successful friends, they cleared it in the first attempts because they never treated it as singularly an exercise that requires rote learning. So application of mind, sir, on the day of the exam, with all the instruments that we've already learnt, and I'm sure we would have covered scores and scores of books in the process, is more critical to clearing prelims.
So in prelims only, CSET recently have become quite challenging. Lot many deserving candidates misses out on the mains ticket because of CSET. So coming from the MBBS background, Rangamanju, how did you tackle CSET?
I may have to thank my math teachers in grades 10 and 12 for this. I have not struggled with math as much as most of my peers have, despite being an MBBS graduate and not having touched that math aspect for 6 years of MBBS. So what I did maybe differently was, in order to clear, accord equal weightage to both sections and not rely extensively just on the comprehension section of the paper. Or there's another section which is logical reasoning as well. We can also quant logical reasoning and comprehension. I devoted roughly equal time to tackling papers, and even though I'm slightly good at math, I would say, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm being a humble brag, but I still attempted, even in my very last attempt, and this is despite me getting roughly 130 plus in CSAT last year, I attempted 20 practice papers this year as well of CSAT alone, because you can't leave it to the whims and fancies of the CSAT question setter. Occasionally, he may set a very difficult paper, and we must be prepared. So, ideally, not taking it lightly, but also distributing risks between all three sections, I think, is my takeaway.
So, Rangamanju, this was your 6th attempt, and it must be a very long journey. And this was the first miss that you cleared, and clearly you were facing a lot of failures in last so many years. And your peers, they might be doing wonders in their life. So, I just want to know, because this is what many of the aspirants, are going through currently. They are struggling with with this journey because they are not getting success. Their peers are going ahead in their life. There are a lot of comparisons that are there. A lot of family pressure is also there. So how you tackle all that? What kept you pushing towards your goal?
So they say comparison is a thief of joy. At least that's what I would have quoted if the question in ethics paper came as such, as my introduction. And I think we tend to compare because we are exposed to those situations where we can compare with our peers who are doing better. Of course, this may not seem as astute advice, but since I cut off from social media, I did not find avenues to see that comparison. I was sure that my friends are progressing, they're getting ahead, but that is the natural course of things. I think UPSC takes its own course. Knowing this, I was stoic. I knew that should I keep to my basis, I perhaps would potentially face success myself, see success myself. So I kept pushing, knowing that I should not be comparing myself, but that would be incorrect of me to say that I never compared myself or I didn't have dull moments. I had plenty of them, and this is where I thank my peers again, my friends who are not of the UPSC circle in the race. I had a lot of them motivate me endlessly. I would, in fact, break down frequently to some of my friends, especially after mains failures, and say that I feel like my life is heading nowhere, and I think all of you've completed your MD degrees, you're in your first year of super specialty, and you're having children, you're married, and I find that I'm a loner, and many such things. But they reminded me that so in this process, I had a good set of friends who would continually motivate me. They would fill me with ideas of success or what I can achieve. If I may again recall my biology teacher, when I called her up and told her that I feel like I'm not meant for this, she said that there are many of them who pursue a course or potentially do something because it may get them success in the near run, but they find themselves lost and burnt out later in life. So if this is truly what you want to do, she told me to give it my all. This was after my third successive prelims failed that I had this conversation with her. That motivation actually took me through much of my poorer moments. But some of my friends would also just remind me that perhaps I'm meant for greater things and therefore the success is delayed. And my friend would occasionally chide and say that the victory is going to taste all that sweeter because it was delayed. And I think, sir, even in ethics, we learn a concept called delayed gratification. Yes. So I think that probably made me stick to the journey.
So Rangamanju, after giving UPSC interview, almost 2/3 of candidates could not find their name in the final list, and that is the unfortunate reality every year. You also faced a similar night when you could not qualify mains last year. So I want you to tell me that what exactly went through the night of the result, and how did you buckle up, and how did you motivate yourself that yes, I need to push for another attempt and I need to do this thing and entirety, because this is what many of the aspirants are going through right now.
So I still remember it. The day is crystal clear. I don't remember the date, but I remember how I felt as a response to not finding my name and my number in that list of mains qualified aspirants of last year. I expected myself to break down, in fact, but what happened was quite different. I was cold. I could not understand why I was not responding. I think that is far worse. I think we should be more expressive when we go through such situations, but I did not sleep that night. I kept awake the entire day, and then I headed to the study room the very next day, and I jotted out exactly what I thought could have gone wrong in this year's mains paper, because it is not just that UPSC tells me that I am not in the interview list, it tells me that I was perhaps nowhere close to getting an IAS rank, because just making it into the interview list and then probably not getting in the final list is also not quite useful. So once I understood that I had lost out the IAS rank with respect to my GS score by at least around 60-70 marks at the very least, I went about unraveling what may have gone wrong, and all things pointed towards my anthropology papers. My paper 2 in fact was one of the lowest. I got nearly 105, and my cumulative score of last year was 230, 125 plus 105. While the topper of last year had secured 325 plus. So you can imagine the gulf was roughly around 100 marks. But this wasn't clear to me at that time. I had a suspicion, and thereafter what I went about doing is dedicating myself towards honing the craft, improving my anthropology. But even in the middle of all this, I knew that there could still be improvement in my GS papers. So I still continued answer writing. So what I usually did was something called freestyle answer writing. I would pick up questions, and they are freely available regardless of the websites that you seek them from, and write them down and give adequate space for it, and the next day cover it in and attempt them, so that it's not fresh in your memory that you've written these questions and you can immediately generate answers. I did this exercise consistently, knowing that I will probably give another prelims and hopefully succeed at, give it another mains, but this time I'll be prepared and I will not be beaten back.
So Socrates says that unexamined life is not worth living, and I modify that to say that unexamined attempt is not worth giving, and that's what Rangamanju did. He examined his attempt, that what might have gone wrong in his mains preparation in the previous attempt, and that actually led to the tremendous improvement that he saw this year, and he got rank 24 this year. So now coming to the conclusion, Rangamanju, okay, now so many aspirants are preparing for this journey, and they also wish to see their name in the final list like you. So what will be your advice to them? If you can just, tell 3 important do's and 3 don'ts to the aspirant, that will be tremendously helpful for them.
Right, sir. But since it's my 6th attempt and it's taken me these many years to get there, I will not tell them what to do. Instead, I will tell them what not to do. So first and foremost, sticking to the same sources. You will find new material in the market, but it does not add value in the long run. Of course, you can keep adding a few bits, but throwing away the old material instead of value adding to it is, I think, not appropriate as a strategy. Secondly, to keep the circle close. I do not think bigger circles of friends are productive for the process of answer writing or for the UPSC process. I think these are my 2 most important takeaways, what not to do rather than what to do.
Okay, so can you elaborate on the revision aspect of the preparation? Because at times what I see, many of the aspirants, they keep on compiling material from here and there. They become notes collector instead of, actual collector. So for that, and I often say this to them, that it becomes difficult to revise all those different things that you keep on collecting. So can you spread some light on the revision aspect of this preparation, how important revision is, and how did you went about this whole process of revision in your journey?
I actually draw some lessons from my pharmacology subject of my 2nd year of MBBS. There were multiple books available to study the subject. It's a difficult subject. There's a lot of rote learning. My professor, the very first day, I remember them telling me that there are these standard books, the foreign authors that you can use. There are these Indian books as well. And then there's a slightly easier book that's a condensed version of all this, which tells you the same material. And it is left to you as to what you want to do. But he also added a caveat that the simplest book can be revised multiple times. So I carried this through into my UPSC journey as well. In fact, I think a lot of people struggle with modern history. If I can just take the example, I did not study spectrum. I studied a condensed version of spectrum that someone had already created. So while spectrum would take an average candidate maybe 20 days to go through all the pages, I could do 3 revisions of that spectrum module in those 20 days. So I think keeping to the same source, regardless of all the new questions that are asked by UPSC, sometimes we cannot predict the way UPSC will ask us questions, and just value adding from whatever test series that we attempt, I think that's a smarter game plan for prelims at least.
Thank you so much, Rangamanju, for doing this with us, and I hope that aspirants out there would learn a great deal of lessons from your journey so that they can make their own journey very smooth. With this, we wish you all the best, and I wish you all the best in your coming journey as a public servant. And thank you for doing this with us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for having me, sir. Thank you.